So I was telling my students this, and they asked me, well, what is it that you've wanted to do that you haven't done? And I said, well, I'd like to meet Warren Buffett. So they asked, well, then why don't you? And I said, yeah, that's a really good idea. I should. I actually wanted to meet Warren Buffett and Muhammad Ali. And I ended up writing a postcard. As a postcard that our school just had its 50th anniversary, and they gave us a bunch of postcards for free. And I took this postcard, and it was this electronic projector, and I said to my students, well, let me write a letter to Warren Buffett. And so, I said, well, I asked the students, like, how should I open this letter, and how should we put this together, and let's see if we can inject some humor, and let's see if somehow through this postcard I can actually meet him. And there's a girl in the back. She put her hand up, and she's like, Mr. Hallam, yeah, my mom is head of JP Morgan Chase Asia, and she's wanted to meet Warren Buffett her whole life, and she's never been able to. So, like, with all due respect to you, you're not going to meet him, and definitely not through this postcard. And so I said, well, life is sort of like things that we do in life. Think about a basketball and think about a hoop, and you either take that shot or you don't, but you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Right? There we go.
Right?
There we go, Jay. There we go, Jay. That was Walter Gretzky. That was Walter Gretzky for the hockey fan people. Walter told his young son Wayne that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So we took this shot with this postcard, and I sent it. The students all laughed at me, but they thought it was fun. Yeah, and so craftiness. So it was brought a little bit of the English class in there, like catchy lead, a little bit of humor. And I said to Warren Buffett, like, hey, I'd love to come to the Berkshire Hathaway annual general meeting, but I noticed there are no youth hostels, no hostels in Omaha, and hotel prices are a bit steep. So do you mind if I sleep in your garage or on your sofa? And 8-9 days later, I got an email from the Wall Street Journal. So Warren Buffett had ended up getting the postcard, thought it was hilarious, sent it to his friend at the Wall Street Journal, and she asked if she could write a story about it. So I showed my students this, projected these emails, and they said, well, that's crazy. That's totally crazy. And I said, well, yeah, they want to write a story. What do you think? Should I say yes? And they said, oh my gosh, yeah, you have to say yes. So I said, well, what's my objective here? What was my objective from the beginning? Was it a story in the Wall Street Journal? They said, well, no, it was to meet Warren Buffett. I said, how many people say no to Warren Buffett? What are you going to say no? And I'm going to say no. I'll say yes conditionally if I can sleep in this garage, and I'll shove aside the lawnmower, and I'll lay my mat down, my Thermarest mat down in between like the lawnmower and the stacks of cherry Coke that I know his wife Astrid buys at Costco in bulk. I know the guy lives on that stuff. And my students thought I was completely nuts. Well, of course, this piques Warren Buffett's curiosity. Now he's got this guy saying no. And so then I'm having an exchange with Warren Buffett, as well as this woman in the Wall Street Journal. My students are seeing all of this stuff. And so long story short, I did end up going to the annual general meeting. I did get a chance to actually meet Warren Buffett. I brought him some gifts, and he and Charlie Munger, the co-chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, and there were just three of us in the room, and I had to apologize, actually four of us, including me, but I had to apologize to the other guy. So there was Warren Buffett, there was Charlie Munger, the co-chairman, but I didn't have any gifts for the third guy, and I felt kind of badly about that. And I'm like, Mr. Gates, I didn't know you're going to be here. No, I would have brought you something. But yeah, so there's the Warren Buffett story.
That's fantastic.
Get out of town.
I love that. That's a fantastic story, isn't it, Jay? Huh?
I gotta be honest, I didn't know that story. Then when you dropped Mr. Gates, I'm really sorry. Here I was thinking it was gonna be like the reporter or something like that. Oh, you stink.
There was a fun little story associated with this too, because a friend of mine, a guy named Chris Olson, and he worked at Harvard Medical School, and he was in Singapore, where I was actually living at the time. So this whole thing was like, I flew from Singapore and did this crazy red-eye thing to go to the annual general meeting in Omaha. But Chris Olson, he came to visit Singapore a couple of weeks before this, and he was doing some post-tsunami relief work in Aceh, Indonesia. And he brought these little like mannequin dolls. So he was teaching midwives how to give CPR for newborns, and in Aceh, Indonesia. But he wrote this article from the New Yorker, which I thought was really cool, and it was about Bill Gates and the work he was doing with like DDT treated nets in Africa to fight malaria. And the article was super cool. And I kept asking Chris all of these questions, like, well, Chris, like, what's Gates doing with this? Or what's Gates doing with that? What does Gates think about this? And Chris, like, what? I don't know. Like, super cool article, but I honestly don't know. And so just to be like a goof, throughout the entire time Chris was hanging with me, I'd say things like, well, you know what, Chris? The next time I see Gates, I'm going to ask him that. I'm going to ask him. And I never stopped. I just kept on saying that. And I mean, I didn't expect to meet Bill Gates 2 weeks later, but I did. And so I ended up asking him some questions. And I called Chris when I got back from Omaha, and I said, Chris, I know what's happening with those DDT treated nets. I know he's making them. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I asked Gates.
Get out.
Fantastic. It's fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
It was kind of neat.
What a life lived. Just the, those interactions alone right there. Those the sort of life defining moments where you get to sort of have the room with people like that.
So it was fun because when I wrote my books, I always sent Warren Buffett a copy, and I never asked for anything. And I think that's really important. Like a lot of people like that, give to them, but don't ask, because people are always asking for stuff from them. So like I gave them gifts. Like I gave obviously Warren Buffett, I gave him a T-shirt in Thai. It says Coca-Cola in Thai, and and he's never going to go to Thailand, but Berkshire Hathaway is the largest shareholder of Coca-Cola. And I gave Charlie Munger this shirt that says like Singapore is a fine city. It's, no urinating in the elevator, fine, $5,000. No spitting, fine, $1,000. And Warren, Charlie Munger is known as the abominable no man. So when any deal comes across the desk, Warren Buffett jokes, and he says, Charlie just says no. So when I gave him this shirt, I said, I know you're the abominable no man, so I've got this for you. But no, I gave Warren, it was fun to have written those books and then send Warren Buffett a copy and then a little note to thank him just for. I just think the whole bedrock of, more than anything, the emotional equanimity in dealing with the stock market. And how helpful that was, and what an impact that was for me personally. So, yeah, that was important for me to do.